Here's how to debug a system type initialization exception error in a static class. What happens is the first time you use a static class anywhere in your application, if you have this constructor-like function, all this code will run. So I would add a breakpoint to the first line of this constructor-like function and run the program. At this point, I would use the F10 to step over the populate items function because I'm just trying to figure out which function has the error. So I hit F10. It's continuing on to the next one, so we know the error is not in populate items. Hit F10 again, moved on to the next one, hit F10 again, populate monsters worked, populate quests work, populate NPCs worked, and when the populate locations function tries to run, that's when we see the type initialization error. So I know the problem is somewhere in populate locations. I'd stop the program, then I'd go back into the world class. I'd remove my breakpoint that I had in the kind of constructor function and go into the populate locations function and set a breakpoint in the first line there. Then I'll start the program again. Now we get into the populate locations function, and I would use F10 and take a look at which line is executing. So this first one, I hit F10, it works. Line 172, F10, it works. Hit the next one, F10, F10, it's all working. And I'm down here on line 194, I hit F10, and the error happens. So now I know the error is somewhere on line 194. I'll stop the program, go back into the world class, put a breakpoint at line 194, and get rid of the old breakpoint, and try running the program again. So now we get here and we know somewhere something is happening that's causing an error on this line. If you hover over the variables, we'll see that this location object looks like it has the advice and the description and the ID. That looks good. Let's hover over the NPCs living here, the property on the location, and we notice that it's null. So what we're trying to do here is on the location object in the NPCs living here property, we're trying to add the NPC. However, NPCs living here is null. You can't add an object to a null list. You have to initialize the list first. So if we go back into our location class and in the location constructor add a NPCs living here equals new list NPC, this will set the property to an empty list. So now we have a place we can actually insert NPCs into. When a list property is null, you can't insert anything into there. You can set it to an empty list, or you can set it to a populated list, but you can't add objects to it like you're adding it to a list, because there is no list there yet. So now let's run this again, and I get to the breakpoint. If we hover over it, we see the location looks populated, and if we even go down to our NPCs living here property, we see that it says count 0, so there is a list there with no items. If we hover over NPCs living here, again we see it's a list with a count of 0, and we're going to try to add this NPC to it. So when I hit F10, this now works. So I'll hit F5 and continue running, and now the program works. That's how I would find the location of an error in a static class that has some sort of constructor-like function that sets up the initial values.